Welcome to episode 24 of the 24-Hour Hustle Show, and today we got special guest, owner of the Minority Networking Exchange, Vernard Alexander. Welcome to the 24-Hour Hustle Show. I'm your host, Anthony Freeze, and today we got special guest, Vernard Alexander. And this is the show where everybody can find out how people are maximizing on their 24 hours. And I've been following a lot of your work for some time now. You're all over Facebook. I mean, you're the connecting king. And you know everybody in the city of Pittsburgh. It seems like if I were to talk to anybody and drop your name, they'll probably say, "Oh yeah, I know Vernard." So that would be a safe bet. But I love the work that you've been doing. I love what you've been doing with the Minority Networking Exchange and putting those events together. And I really appreciate and admire all the work that you've been doing. So I'm glad to finally get you on the show and learn a little bit more about you.
Hey, I appreciate the opportunity for being on the show, and thanks for the kind words. I don't know everyone yet, but it's definitely a goal to know the people I'm supposed to know. Mm-hmm. You know, who I currently know and the people in the future.
Absolutely. So for people who may not know who you are, if they don't, what is your background? What is it that you do for people who don't know, to kind of inform them a little bit?
Cool. Well, my background, by day, I manage a company that helps people obtain employment. I have been doing that for 15 years. Went to school to become a teacher, so I have an associate's, bachelor's, and master's degree in teaching. I used to be a teacher for a few years, working with middle school students, and I guess you can say I'm still a teacher because what I do on my day job deals with adult education. Okay. And I'm also, you mentioned my business. I've been in business for almost 12 years.
Nice.
And it's just been a blessing, I guess.
Absolutely. So where'd you go to school to go study?
I obtained my associate's degree in teacher education from CCAC. Okay. My bachelor's in social studies. Oh, wow.
It's all good.
I obtained my bachelor's degree in secondary social studies education from Point Park University. Okay. And my master's of art and curriculum instruction with an emphasis on adult education from Point Park University. Nice.
So what was it about, education and things like that, inspired you to go that route? What were some of your upbringing like that maybe put the seed in you and that grew over time? Or who were some of the people that were in your life? Kind of take us through that story of your upbringing and kind of lead in that direction.
Cool. I think probably between third and, as far as I can remember, third grade through until college, I never had a black male teacher. Mm-hmm. And so that was one of the things. I always had black women teachers between third and eighth grade, but I went to a predominantly white high school that didn't have any black staff at all. So volunteering. When I was 18 or 19 years old, part of my senior project, I was a volunteer at an after-school program, so I think that started my path onto education. Mm-hmm. That's
interesting. I mean, I always love to hear people's perspective on what kind of got them in the line of work that they do, and, hearing that definitely makes sense. I mean, if you're young and you're not seeing somebody that looks like you that's teaching, that kind of influences that mindset a lot too. Yeah.
I was very naive too. To be a teacher, I was very naive. I thought it was going to be the easiest job in the world.
Okay.
I thought being a black male in schools would be an easy thing. I'm like, oh, this is going to be breeze. Yeah. The kids is going to love me. I'm going to command all the respect, and oh my God, it was quite the opposite.
So what was maybe some specific challenges that you would say you faced?
Probably not being ready, to be honest.
Okay.
in retrospect, definitely a lot of things that I would have did differently as a teacher, as a mentor, as a leader. But I learned a lot about myself. So at the end of the day, it was all positive experiences, lifelong. Established lifelong relationships with former coworkers who are still teachers or principals, and even established relationships that continue to today with some of our former students.
Mm-hmm. And was there any huge influences of people that kind of that you wanted to emulate? Like you looked at somebody and said, "Yeah, I like what they're doing. I want to kind of emulate that."
I can't think of anyone in particular. Maybe Dr. White Taylor, who is retired. She was pretty much a no-nonsense principal, and she always looked out after me. She always mentored me and was preparing me for the next opportunity. Mm-hmm. So definitely, as far as someone in a profession, I definitely looked up to her.
Mm. And anything maybe in addition to maybe, being in a position where other people maybe not look like you, but you want to be, that example. Anything in addition to things that made you want to go the education route?
I'm not sure why initially.
Okay.
I always heard the story that, I always heard from many different people that college students change their major minimum of so many times. So initially, surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, my first major was business.
Okay.
And business management. So I never had an idea what I was going to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And fast forward,
12 years later,
back into business management, so to speak.
Right. So what was it about business that inspired you or influenced you?
I didn't think about it at the time, to be honest with you. The first business I've owned, I was probably 10, 11, 12 years old.
Oh, damn.
Living in the projects. I actually had a icy cup business where I sold icy cups. And how I got started was my mother got tired of giving me a couple dollars a day to go up the street to buy icy cups from Miss Pat. So she said, you need to make your own icy cups, which I did. And Miss Pat was selling her icy cups for 20 or 25 cents, and then I started selling icy cups for 15 and 20 cents.
You cut her prices.
Yes, and I became very popular within the community that I lived in, and then I added a second product to it. I don't know if you remember those popcorn poppers where you put the seeds in and the popcorn would come out into the bowl.
Oh my gosh, it's been a while since I've heard that.
Yeah. And then I would bag the popcorn up and I'd sell it for 15 cents, 25 cents. So I did that for a couple summers.
Okay.
So that was my first venture into entrepreneurship. I didn't know what I was doing. I thought I was just hustling a couple dollars.
Right.
And then my second business, my last 2 years of undergrad, I started a landscaping business.
Okay.
My grandmother, who was living at the time, gave me some money to buy a used truck, lawnmower, weed whacker, garbage bags, and the whole nine. And I started cutting grass. The first year, I probably destroyed more yards than I beautified. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. But the funny thing was, the lesson later is that people didn't really care about me cutting grass. They was investing in me because they knew I was a struggling college student. So, they was like, hey, come on over. I give you $20 every week or every 2 weeks to cut my grass. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize at the time that, shoot, if I was smart, I probably would have kept that business as opposed to being a teacher because, there's some successful landscapers who work 4 or 6 months out of the year and they live pretty good.
Yeah. It's funny. That's actually how I got my entrepreneur start, was mowing people's lawns. I started out just mowing my own, and my granddad would actually pay me like $20 to do our lawn. And then our next door neighbor, they also had a nice ass lawn. And then one day they happened to see me out there mowing it. And they were walking out, I guess probably going to work or what have you. And they just said, hey, you mind mowing ours for us? I'll pay you like $20. I'm like, oh, snap, I'm starting to expand a little bit. I totally relate to that a lot because I did the same exact thing.
Oh, the second year, I was good. By then, I was planting flowers, planting, trimming hedges,
Mm-hmm.
reseeding yards that I had patches of missing grass. So I was actually,
Yeah.
I was really developing my craft. And,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
didn't get that far, but
yeah.
that's good stuff.
I had to make a choice. You
Yeah.
know, the first year I had about 15 customers, consistent customers. The
Mm-hmm.
second year I had about 30 to 40
Okay.
consistent customers. So I was making money,
Dang.
but then I had to make the decision, you know, am I going to further my career as a teacher, or am I going to stick with this business? And
Mhm.
I was like, I went to school, paid all this money to be a teacher, and then I let the business go.
Yeah, understandable. So that's probably how you became the Connect King. People, you know, you was the Connect for the ices and the popcorn and the landscape, you know. So you did the education thing for a while, and then and you still do that today. So what inspired you to get into starting the Minority Networking Exchange?
Let's see. My youngest will be 12 in August, so about a year ago, about close to about 12 years ago, when I learned I was having my first child, I said a prayer. I was like, God, I don't want to work for anybody anymore. I was like, or I want to start my own business to take care of my family. And I had no idea on what I wanted to do. And I read an article in a New Pittsburgh Courier about the legendary Crawford Grill closing its South Side or Station Square location. And as I read the article, there was just, I couldn't believe the comments. There was people who didn't care that this legendary institution was closing. There was people complaining about the drinks, the prices of the drinks, prices of the food, having to go to the Station Square as opposed to being on the Hill District, having to pay for parking. It's just a little bit of everything. And I was a little shocked and taken back. And it started the process with me. I said, hey, I would love to have an organization that would be a support for Black business owners.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so that was the start of the Minority Networking Exchange. And what I did probably for the first 3 or 4 years was simply just host events, networking events where people could come together.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the early years. That was the first few years. And then I would say after that, I started hosting events for a couple years at the when the Shadow Lounge was still open. I
remember that.
Yeah, I would host an event there every Thursday on and off for a couple years called the Networking Nightcap, where I was basically helping people learn how to create their own elevator pitch. And business owners would come, they would get on a mic, and they would literally practice their elevator pitch. Mm-hmm. And I've seen some people who now, you know, from the experience who have perfected their elevator pitch from that. And so that probably took me to about year 4, 5, or 6. And then as I became more at learning my craft, I started facilitating different events, whereas instead of bringing in guest speakers, I was the guest speaker. So I would do presentations on elevator pitch, doing presentations on marketing, doing presentations on social media. And if you fast forward today, I guess I'm known more so for my social media. So I've done a lot of presentations on engagement marketing, which is how to get people to like, share, and comment and share your content. So the more you get people to like, comment, and share, the more people who will see your public content. So I do a lot of presentations on engagement marketing, a lot of presentations on non-traditional funding, how to use crowdfunding, how to use creative events such as happy hour events and different things like that to help people raise money for their business, for their venture. In addition to that, I do social media management for business owners, nonprofits, local politicians. I have a book coming out, hopefully in the next few months, called The Book of Definitions. So far, it's 726 words, common and not so common term words, that will have one sentence in Vern speak. So I researched the definition to each one of these common and not so common words, and I just created a sentence real quick that when folks who didn't attend business school, when they're at these networking events, that they could be able to understand and relate really quick and not have a lot of conversations with people and they go over their head because they're not sure of the proper business terms and vernacular.
A lot of great stuff. A lot of great stuff that you said in there that I definitely want to unpack. Definitely the events, maybe how people can maybe put on events. Definitely talking about the social media and definitely talking about the book. So let's go to the beginning of putting how you've been able to put on all these events, because that's actually one space that I'm looking to eventually get into, because I want to be able to bring people together. One of the big things that I'm actually looking to do for the show is bring people together that have been on the show and bring them all together and kind of maybe have a theme or something together, but still working on an idea. So for anybody else that's looking to come up with events and try to bring people together, what is your process like as far as putting these events together? What are some of the challenges that you may face, and how can people overcome those?
Some of my biggest challenges was venues, and finding venues, and that's one aspect. And the other one is really just talking to the entrepreneurs, So in some cases, I was hosting events where I was literally the only person who showed up.
In the beginning. Right.
I mean, sometimes now, honestly. So, I mean, there's times where there's like one person who will show up. And then there's times when there's, and you'd be like, wow, it is raining. It's like 90 degrees and it's just raining. No one's going to come out. And next thing you know, doors open and there's like 50 or 70 entrepreneurs there ready to do their elevator pitch. So, there's really no rhyme or reason. But, what I try to stress to the entrepreneurs that I work with is don't take it personal. Don't get mad. And it is your job. It is your job to create awareness and to create a market and demand for what you're offering so that people will show up. So when people don't show up for my events, or when it's under my anticipated or estimation of how many people who is going to arrive at an event, when I don't reach that target number, I don't blame the crowd. I don't blame the community. I don't go on social media rants. I look at myself and say, okay, what can I do differently? Where did I drop off with my marketing? Or, how can I reach out to folks to create that excitement so that next time I host a similar event that more people will attend?
That's good stuff. Any other, because I know you mentioned the weather too, but any other challenges, like as far as like finding a venue, like whenever you find a venue, do you stick with that one for a while, or do you have to constantly keep finding a different place? Like, what's that like?
I always have a few different venues in mind, and then I try to think about my target audience and how far they'd be willing to travel. So I've hosted events on the north side, the south side, downtown, East Liberty, Homewood, Wilkinsburg, Penn Hill. So I try to make it centrally located to the east end or closer to town. And that's worked out pretty well for me so far. And I usually try to go with, I usually have multiple venues that I work with at the same time. I'm thinking about the question and I'm like, wow, everything that I've done over the last year or so has definitely been on the east end, but it's centrally located. Once folks tell me that, hey, I have a desire for you to maybe host events on the other side of town and people follow me there, I definitely will. Okay.
And then as far as like maybe, whenever you do find the venue, like establishing the relationship with the establishment or the business owner, things like that, do you have to, what are some of the things that you have to do whenever you're trying to get your event at a certain place?
It really depends on the venue, so in certain cases, I have been lucky enough or I should say blessed enough that in a lot of venues, I don't have to pay anything at all.
That's damn good right there.
Or I pay very little.
Okay.
So I'm paying much less than the average person for any venue that I'm using. And The win-win with that is, in most of the cases, I'm advertising our venue to other people who may not know about it, so it's bringing them business on the back end as well. And if I'm using a venue that is a bar or restaurant, they give me the venue for free 99.9% of the time, because the money that they're going to make on the back end is real.
Okay, yeah, it definitely is real. I mean, yeah, that was my thought process too. I mean, if you're bringing in the business, I mean, they shouldn't have a problem with you maybe just using their venue for free or for a small fee.
Right.
So yeah, that's something I just wanted to ask you. Any other challenges that you feel like you may have encountered or other people may encounter trying to start an event?
I'm trying to think. Maybe what type of
or maybe marketing strategies to get the word out or anything like that. Certain day, certain time.
Yeah, I'm very cognizant of all that. So I use my social media pages to survey the folks who follow my page all the time. And one really good way to do that is the Facebook groups, especially if you're in business groups and you're in a space with a lot of entrepreneurs. Unfortunately, inside the groups is the only places where you can do polls.
Oh, yeah.
Outside of maybe doing a Survey Monkey or something like that. But if you're going to use Facebook's tools, they have poll questions. And so I'm always using poll questions. And I just put a poll question up a couple weeks ago that really blew my mind as far as everything that I was doing. Because lately, I would probably say since October, I've been hosting a lot of my business seminars on Sunday afternoons or Monday evenings. And it's worked out pretty well for me over the last 6 months. And I put a poll question up, and I said, hey, what is the best date and time for you to attend an event? And I don't know why I was surprised, but about 75 to 80% of the people who clicked the poll results said Saturday morning, early afternoon. Now, I know as the summer comes and as there's parents who are involved with a lot of weekend activities, and as the weather gets warmer and you have youth sports leagues, that'll change a little bit. But, for me, it was the anecdotal evidence that I need to say, okay, from, March 10th on until maybe the beginning of summer, all your networking events and seminars will definitely be on Saturday morning, early afternoon. So,
yeah.
And then, as it gets close to the summer, I'll throw up the same poll question and I'll ask everyone again. And if 50% of the people say Monday evening or Wednesday evening works out better for me, then for the next quarter or two, I'll make sure that I'm hosting events on those days.
Right. And then and also as far as themes go, because one of the things that I don't want to happen is just have it just be a straight, just maybe connecting or networking event. I want maybe people to get something out of it more than just kind of just talking to a few people. So as far as maybe some additional themes that you put on, what are some ideas or suggestions you would give the maybe to enhance the experience even more?
I just ask people what they want, so that works well for me. One of the things that folks who attend my events, whether they like it or not, they know, I think they've grown to appreciate it, is that at the beginning of every event that I host, I usually set aside the first 30 to 40 minutes of a 2 to 3 hour event for straight networking. And so folks who attend my events know that for the first 30 to 40 minutes that everyone's going to practice their elevator pitch. So I give everyone 30 seconds to go around the room, or I give everyone 30 seconds to stand up, introduce themselves, introduce their business, tell us what product or service they offer, where they can find you, and why you do it better. So that's one of the themes that people always know, that if you're attending my event, that you're going to have to get up and do your elevator pitch. So I think it's just discovering your niche, and figuring out what people want and delivering it.
Yeah, that's definitely good information. That's good to know. And then as far as one of the things we also want to unpack was, how you're utilizing social media, because you're killing it. I would say, you got the Connecting King Corner, you got the Question of the Night. That's probably about that's probably one of my favorites. So how have you been able to develop and create these communities online? Because I'm sure these took some time to be able to build up. So how are you utilizing social media, and how were you able to create all these communities?
So I tell people all the time that I've known people. I've been in Western PA all my life, and I would never consider myself the popular guy, in any arena. But I think what helped elevate me personally and professionally was actually the rise of social media. So with my Facebook my Facebook main page, trying to think. I've tried to create, and it's never going to be the perfect, but I've tried to create the perfect community of folks from all walks of life, and to bring people together on a positive basis, whether it's helping folks find a job, whether it's helping people meet for as a personal relationship and business opportunity. So it started probably about 8 or 9 years ago. Just as a joke, I just said, hey, the question of the night is, and then the next night, the question night is, and then there was 100 responses and 200 responses, and then it went from one question to 20 questions, and then, some of the questions received 1,000, 1,500 responses, and then as a result, politicians wanted to meet with me, and they said, we like what you're doing on your social media page, and we can't, for obvious reasons, participate in all the conversations, but we would like to give you $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000, to promote my name over the next few months.
Wow.
And I'm like, hey, I like you
already. I can do that.
I liked you, what you stand for, but now, you want to give me a few $1,000s for already telling the people that I like you? Like,
this is a good deal.
I could do this.
Yeah.
So, just learning how social media works, learning how you could be a successful entrepreneur and use it to your advantage. You mentioned the groups. With my connecting group, over 2,000 people in a group, and just wanting to provide access and opportunity and information. As far as the question and night group, my vision for that is to grow into a 20, 30, 40,000 member group. And then we take a spring off of that group of maybe 100, 1,000 people, and actually start an investment club. So,
oh wow, that'll be.
Imagine if we had 1,000 people, or maybe let's be a little bit more realistic. Let's say we had 200 people put in $25 or $50 a month in a pot, and we don't touch that money for 4 or 5 years. And next thing you know, we have a few $100,000 and say, all right, we want to go buy a strip mall within our community, help transform that strip mall and put in businesses that look like us, and help create access to capital for different people in the community. So there's a method to my madness in everything that I do. So in the one group, it's all about just connecting with each other. The other group is connecting on an entrepreneur level. The other group is more so just connecting on a personal level. And then pretty soon I'll be launching another group, which is actually going to be a paid Facebook group for business owners, where I give out tips, advice. We have Q&A sessions with local experts, live videos, meetups, information that will be themed every week, every month, geared to entrepreneurship on a higher level. So that person who may not want to attend events, that person who may not be able to come out to events, that person who has a desire for a little bit more information, they'll be able to get it by joining one of my groups for about $20 a month, which is not, expensive at all.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of people who are using private groups to make money, and Facebook knows this. I mean, there's people who have groups that you pay $600, $800 for 3 months, $1,000, $2,000 for mastermind groups, and then after the 90 days is up, they kick you out the group, and then they put another 50, 100 people in there. So, I have a plan. I've always had a plan to use social media as the start of my empire.
Yeah.
And to be able to build off of it.
Right. I mean, one of the reasons why I want to ask is because you're one of the biggest influences that I see on social media, and you've been able to do a great job at it. So I wanted to be able to pick your brain on how you've been able to accomplish that. So any little tips that you can give for anybody that's trying to create more engagement, try to get more likes, comments, and shares and things like that? What's your philosophy on that?
My philosophy is to be the authentic you.
Okay.
You know, and I haven't always been the authentic me. And even as I was building my social media persona, you know, I was living a lie. You know, a quite public lie for a long time. Okay. And as I became more comfortable with myself and my truth, then I started telling my truth publicly, and people start respecting you more because they already knew the truth. Mm-hmm. You know, and so it's not like, hey, you know, it's trying to be this way on social media versus who they are in real life. And as I became more comfortable with my skin, I think that kind of helped elevate me a little bit, and people seeing your truth and not trying to be the perfect person. I'll give an example. I have some mentors, and they always say to me, well, you can't say this on social media. You can't post those type of questions. And I always said, well, I'm going to do it my way, authentically my way. Whether it pisses somebody off or not, can I say that?
Yeah, you can. And that was authentic right there. So
whether it pisses somebody off or not, I'm going to be my authentic self. And whether, even if it costs me a couple of dollars on the short term. Mm-hmm. And so what really changed my philosophy on this is actually the book and the movie Pursuit of Happiness.
Oh, that's one of my favorite movies.
Oh, man. And so I wound up, the movie was great.
Yeah.
But it doesn't tell the whole story. And the movie was actually Hollywood. It was
They changed a lot in the story.
They changed a lot. So I wound up going to the library and getting the audiobooks. Mm-hmm. And probably over a course of a 2-period time, I listened to the 5 or 6 hour audiobook about 5 or 6 times. And each time I would get more and more out of it. And so, you know, as I learned more about Chris Gardner and his story, I'm like, man, he's phenomenal. And so one day, because YouTube is my best friend, I YouTube Chris Gardner, and I see all these keynote speeches, and he's at this keynote address where he's probably getting paid, I don't know, whatever he gets paid, $20, $50, $100,000, and he's in a room with like mostly white people, and he's like, yeah, and then the motherfucker said, well, I said, well, hey, hold up. I'm trying to be perfect on social media. Right. I'm not trying to use a word more than the word damn. and here's this guy who, you know, I love, and he was like, motherfucker. I was like, whoa. Then my girlfriend was like, well, you can't use the word motherfucker.
Why not?
I'm like, well, she's like, you're not Chris Gardner.
Right.
I said, but I can be.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I was like, he's just being his authentic self. And this is on YouTube, so he doesn't care.
Right.
It's on his YouTube page.
Right.
And, of course, I'm not at his level yet, but, you know, it just made me feel a little bit more comfortable about everything that I was doing and the direction that I was going about being my authentic self.
Right. And that's one of the biggest challenges I think a lot of people struggle with, even on social media, period, just trying to be authentic. And that's one of the biggest things that I've found, even for myself, as far as trying to market things out there and try to bring more awareness to it. Just be authentic. There was a video that I came across, and somebody said there's 3 things that will help you get more engagement and you know, people sharing and stuff like that. One is self-awareness, which kind of ties into, you know, being your authentic self, and then also having it be entertaining, and then also motivating. And when I think of those 3 traits, I feel like you definitely got the entertaining part down pat. Because like I said, I love the question of the night. I have a lot of fun on there. And then you definitely have a lot of self-awareness and, you know, just being your authentic self on there, because it's you. It's who you are. And then also you have some motivation stuff on there too to kind of, connect people and have the right resources to be able to connect people or, get in contact with that person or that person. So I feel like those three things definitely help as far as, having more shareability, interaction and all that, to be able to get out there some more.
Thank you. I'm very, what's the word? I'm very aware, or I'm very conscious of the people I work with and the businesses that I promote. And that's part of, I guess, of me trying to be authentic, is that I think people trust me. And as a result, so if I promote this business, then people are going to pay attention to it. They may not necessarily go support the business, but they're going to pay attention to it. And so then the next time that someone mentions it to them, like, I heard this before.
Yeah.
Maybe I heard this from Vernard. Or they may go support the business because I've hyped the business up, and then, go for themselves. And, I mean, I guess it's just a blessing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. At the end of the day. Yeah. So, and now getting into the last thing, talking about your book and getting into the future. So, one of the things that you said, the reasons why you put this together was trying to help people at networking events just understand the different terms. And I remember when we sat down over a cup of coffee, you actually showed me a couple things. I actually learned, I think like one or two. One of the biggest ones that stuck out to me was the 1 comma club or the 2 comma club thing. I didn't know what that was, but I was definitely trying to get into like at least the 2 comma club. I'm definitely.
So, well, the 1 comma club is somebody who's a thousandaire, right? And then the 2 comma is like, so I think it was the 3 comma club. I can't remember. It's definitely in a book, but I was like, oh, what is that? The comma club. Oh, that's a billionaire.
Yeah.
All right. So.
Right.
So it has some very interesting, unique terms in it, very common terms. One of the things that I see a lot of entrepreneurs call themselves as CEOs.
Yeah, you're not at that point.
I'm not a CEO.
Yeah,
when I'm guest speaker at different events and people say the CEO of the Minority Networking Exchange. No, I'm the owner, operator of the Minority Networking Exchange. I'm not the CEO because this is not a corporation and I don't have hundreds of employees and bringing in millions of dollars yet. But, so it's those slight things like that people pay attention to, and you want to make sure that you're using the right terms and different things like that when you're at different networking and connecting events.
So when did you say that book is looking to drop? Because I know because I'm definitely I want to get that because I want to know a lot of these terms because there's a lot of things that I still don't even understand.
I'd say about 90 days.
90 days?
90 days.
I'm on it.
90 days.
Like you got like a get it early type thing or anything like that?
You know what? I will. Yeah, I haven't planned that all out yet, to be honest with you. I've been procrastinating.
Okay.
Procrastinating. Don't be a procrastinator.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, because I definitely want to get that because, like I said, there's a lot of terms that I want to have a better understanding on because I just want to be a better entrepreneur, a better business owner, a better CEO once I get to that point, just so I have a better understanding of how these terms work and when to use them and things like that. But I love the idea of the book and definitely can't wait for it to drop. What are some other things that you're looking to do in the future? So what's like your big goals for the next 2-5 years from now, or what's the legacy that you're looking to create?
Oh, wow. Legacy. Okay, so I've been hosting a poetry event as part of my business for the last 8 years on and off, and I plan on ending the series at the end of the year. And someone asked me, another poet promoter asked me, well, what's your legacy to the Pittsburgh arts community? And I think one of my legacies with the community is to get a lot of artists that I come into contact with to take their art to another level where they can actually become paid and make it into a business as well. So I think part of my legacy with the arts community is helping elevate folks into transforming their passion into a business. So that's part of it. I think part of my legacy is actually helping people start, expand, and elevate their businesses as well. One of the things that I like to touch on is that I'm a trustee for Kiva, which is a international crowdfunding platform. Kiva has just surpassed the $1 billion mark. So $1 billion of zero interest loans to entrepreneurs all over the world. Here locally, Kiva Pittsburgh has raised over $1 million worth of loans. And then as a trustee from Kiva, I have raised the most, I have endorsed the most loans in the state of PA. I have raised the most money out of PA, and I'm the 8th most trustee across the entire international Kiva platform. That's raised the most money for entrepreneurs. So
that's a big deal.
With the help of my network and the people who follow me, my network's raised about $115,000 for local entrepreneurs using Kiva, which made me the 8th most trustee as far as money raised. So I would like to become number 1 by the end of 2019. I'm not sure what that number is. I'll find out, but so that's part of my impact, part of my legacy is to actually help people find money to start or expand their business.
That'll be a huge impact, and it's definitely a great accomplishment, even where you're at right now, but to even get to number 1 would be even bigger, which is definitely a great thing. And I definitely appreciate it as an entrepreneur for you to even be doing this. So that's definitely good stuff. As far as, for any struggling entrepreneur out there or somebody that wants to start their own business or they trying to find their passion or whatever it may be, what's maybe something that is inspiring or motivational that you would say to them to maybe get over the hump or maybe try to figure out that idea or find their passion? What is some advice that you would maybe give to them?
I think it's really about discovering yourself. And for me, I'm a visual learner. So I'll give you a good example. For the month of January, I came out the gate like a bat out of hell. So I had a phenomenal January. And then the beginning of February, I had a lot of events with my children. I had a lot of personal events and just other things as well. And by the time February was over, I was tapped out, and I was not productive at all as far as my business. And it wasn't until the last week of February that I started becoming more productive, and now we're going into the second week of March, and I had my energy back, I had my mojo back. And one of the things that I realized was part of the reason why I wasn't productive as much as I wanted to be is for the first 3 weeks of February, I did not even look at my to-do list one time. One time. And so as the last week of February, I started looking at my to-do list. I started knocking things out. I started adding things more on. Now I'm into planning events for April and May. And so I had my mojo back. But for me, that's the one thing. Always write down your ideas. Always work on those ideas. Don't try to accomplish everything in one day. Even if you could just scratch one thing off your to-do list today. And then by the time Friday comes, you realize that, maybe 15-20% of your to-do list is gone already. And then you start adding more things, and you can start seeing that you're making progress. You can see the progression growing and growing and growing. So for me, the one thing that I tell everyone is to write down all your ideas.
Absolutely. And then is there anything that we may not have covered or something that you want to promote or something that you want to talk about, that's something that's on your mind, or anything at all that you want to share or message or anything at all? The platform and the floor is kind of yours at this point.
Cool. Well, thank you for having me here today. If you want to look me up, if anyone wants to look me up, they can look me up, Vernard, Vernard Alexander. You can look me up on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I have a Facebook main page, Facebook business page. I have some private groups. You can send a request to the private group, the Connecting King Corner. There's over 2,300 entrepreneurs in there who, we connect with each other. I just don't allow people to put flyers in a group and then go to the next group. We actually connect. And, I try to teach people the difference between networking and connecting, because there's a big difference. Big difference. Networking, you're at an event, you exchange business cards, and that's it. A couple months later, you see the same person. You're like, we're going to get together for coffee. 6 months later, you're still trying to get together for coffee, and there's 6 inches of snow on the ground, and a year went by, and then you never connected with the person. Connecting is me saying, okay, Anthony, I have someone who I'd like to introduce you to who can help further your business, and then me reaching out to the person and connecting you two together, and, you know, bringing that person, being that person who brings you together, and then you guys could take that relationship to the next step.
Absolutely. And then last question, as we are starting to do now on this show, is do a 24-hour challenge. So, you know, for anybody that may be inspired, motivated, touched by your story, they want to connect with you and things like that, what's a challenge that you were proposed to people out there to do within the next 24 hours that they can obtain?
A challenge in the next 24 hours. 2 challenge, 1 or 2?
You can do 2.
All right, can we do 2?
Yeah.
All right. In the next 24 hours, I encourage everyone to spend at least $20 with a black business, African-American business, where it could be your favorite business, or it could be a business that you have been looking forward to support, but for whatever reason, you haven't had a chance to yet. So I would like you, my challenge is for you to spend at least $20 with any minority-owned business within the next 24 hours, and then send me a message on Facebook telling me what business you supported and why and what was your experience.
Yeah.
The second challenge would be is the inbox somebody and just say hi. Tell them you love them. Tell them you miss them. Tell them you're sorry. Tell them you're sorry. You know, even if the person don't know you wronged them, just tell them you're sorry. You know, I'm all about positive relationships. So
Absolutely.
Send somebody a message, tell them, you know, put a word of encouragement in their life.
Absolutely. I love the first challenge. And as far as, you know, being able to support a local black business, at least spend at least $20. To add on to maybe messaging you, use the hashtag 24-hour challenge and maybe take a picture of the receipt of that business, throw it up on Instagram, put it up on Facebook, just so that we know that you spent some time at that business and how much you spend, things like that. I think that'll be awesome. And then also, you know, just, you know, adding value to someone else and just connecting with them. I think that'll be awesome. So great challenges as well. So
all right.
I appreciate you being on the show.
Appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely looking forward to all the things that you're going to be doing in the future. Can't wait till the book comes out. Like I said, I'm definitely grabbing one of those. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to everything in the future. So now that we know what Vernard does with his 24 hours, we want to know what you do with your 24 hours. Definitely accept the challenge and comment down below of how it went. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and we will see you on the next episode.